The Body in the Trench, a Jazzi Zanders mystery, Book 7, by Judi Lynn. Narrated by Devon Sorvery. Chapter 1. Hideous. Jazzi crossed her arms and stared at the house. She, Ansel, and Jared had spent all day removing overgrown bushes, saplings, and weed-infested flower beds from around its foundation and yard. It had to be done. Everything had been overgrown and neglected. But now the house was totally visible, and it was even worse than she'd imagined. Painted garish green with mismatched front windows, a flat facade, and a square cement stoop, it was ugly piled on uglier. It was a good thing they'd gotten it dirt cheap. Ansel came to wrap an arm around her waist. He looked nervous. It has a bigger yard than I remembered. That will be a selling point. Jared snorted, coming to join them. You picked a winner this time, big guy. Her cousin and business partner loved to give her Viking grief. Ansel ran a hand through his white blonde hair, his brows furrowed. He'd found their new fixer-upper and convinced them to buy it. I hope I didn't get us in over our heads. Jared and I had votes, Jazzi said, tossing her cousin a look. We could have said no. I'm glad you didn't. Ansel practically hummed with energy. He was so ready to start this project. We can't think about the house as is, but about its potential. I'm trying. Maybe if she squinted, if she shut her eyes completely and imagined something else. It wasn't easy. But the house sat on the corner of the turn-in to an exclusive subdivision, and its foundation was in great shape. Too bad that was the only thing that was decent. The brown roof leaked. Not a problem. They meant to tear it off anyway and make the house 2 stories with a barn-shaped roofline and 3 dormers. Unfortunately, the weatherman predicted rain for the rest of the week. Not too brilliant to rip off a roof before a deluge, so they'd hurried to do the yard work. Once the monsoons came, they'd work inside, gutting everything down to the house's studs. April showers may bring May flowers, but the predicted rain had made them start work earlier this morning and stay later to finish the yard. Jazzi's muscles ached. Dirt smudged her face and arms. Ansel grinned at her and pulled out a twig that was tangled in her unruly honey-colored hair. Jared wiped sweat off his forehead. Usually, landscape work makes a house look better. It's too soon with this one, though. He bent to scratch George behind the ears when Ansel's pug sauntered over to them. Do you approve, boy? Think we have a winner this time? George had exercised enough and plopped down in a ray of sunshine to stretch on the newly mown grass. Ansel motioned toward the house. It's an eyesore now, but you saw the finished blueprints and ideas. It's going to be a beauty when we're done. Was he trying to convince himself or them? Jazzi leaned against his long body. The man was pure muscle. He didn't budge. We have faith in your vision. A man driving a Porsche slowed down to sneer at the house. His window lowered, and he called, You'd be better off knocking it down and starting over. Jared raised his middle finger in comment, and the man drove on. Squaring his shoulders, Jared turned to them. Let's do this. You want everything on the exterior white, right? The house, trim, and porch columns? Ansel nodded. I wanted a clean, crisp look. Flowers and landscaping will set it off. She'd seen the picture that had inspired him and liked it. They'd measured everything, and his plan would work. When the house was finished, it would have a huge open room to the right, the living room, dining room, and kitchen all in one. A study, master bedroom, and bath would stretch on the left, and there'd be 3 bedrooms with baths upstairs. They were going to make a solid profit on this fixer-upper. She turned to her cousin. You have someone lined up to do the plumbing and electric work? Thane and his company are doing the plumbing, heating, and cooling. I asked Rob Bartles to wire the house. He thought he could do it, but hasn't gotten back to me. But you know Rob. He loves to play mind games. A trickster. He'll wait till the last second to let me know. Scowling, Ansel asked, "Aren't you taking a chance? Can we get someone else at the last minute if Rob can't make it?" Jared waved away his concern. If Rob couldn't do it, he'd have told me. He wouldn't leave us hanging, especially if he ever wants to work with us again, but he's enjoying making us wonder. It sounds like it's going to be fun working with him. Sarcasm dripped from Ansel's tone. He shifted slightly, and Jazzi stepped away from him. He glanced at the sun, lower in the sky than usual at the end of a workday. "Are we finally ready to head home? We've put in a lot of hours, and I'm hungry." "So am I. Franny and the kids are going to be starving. I promised to pick up supper tonight." Jared did his best to cook or grab food so that his wife didn't cook. He told her and Ansel it was self-preservation. He complained that he was lucky when Franny's meals were edible, but he wouldn't change a thing about her. He was besotted with her carrot-colored hair, freckles, and steady disposition. She took his irreverent personality in her stride. Ansel picked up George to carry to the work van and had just put him on the back seat when his cell phone buzzed. He glanced at the ID and frowned. His blue eyes turned glacial. "Who is it?" Jazzi hadn't seen him look that irritated at anyone since his dad was alive. Ansel and Delmar had never gotten along. "Uncle Len." He slid behind the van's steering wheel to drive. "Aren't you going to answer it?" Jazzi knew he had mixed feelings about the man. When his dad kicked him off the farm after he graduated high school, his uncle had promised him a job in River Bluffs on his construction crew. He even let Ansel live with him for a while, but Len's two sons went out of their way to let Ansel know he wasn't welcome. They didn't want him butting in to share in any of the family profits, and Len did nothing to protect him. So Ansel went private doing small contract jobs until he eventually started working with her and Jared. Jazzi sympathized with his internal struggle before he put the phone to his ear. "I'm busy. Make it quick." He put the phone on speaker. "We had an accident on our building site. Xavier was in the trench, laying pipe like you used to, and the retaining wall gave. The dirt buried him. He was dead before we could dig him out." Oh, what an awful way to die. When Ansel had started with Len, he was the one who jumped in trenches to lay pipe. What if a dirt wall had fallen on him? She couldn't think about it. At least he hadn't kept that job for long. He'd moved on to other things really quickly. He was used to hard labor after growing up on his dad's dairy farm, and Len noticed. Soon he was promoted to leveling gravel for road work, then to building frames for buildings, until eventually he could do anything Len's two sons could do. And that was the problem. Trey and Willie felt threatened by him. Ansel glowered at the phone. "Why are you calling me? I'm not coming back to work for you if that's what you need. You can hire someone else to dig trenches and lay pipe." His uncle hesitated. "I've heard that your wife and you have helped friends prove that they're innocent. Xavier and Trey were working the trench together, Trey on the backhoe, Xavier in the ditch. The rest of us were grading the parking lot behind the building. The two of them had gotten into some heated arguments lately, and the cops are hinting that Trey buried Xavier on purpose." Jared had moseyed over to hear what was going on. He raised an eyebrow at Ansel. "Isn't Trey the one who was as mean as dirt to you? Would he do something like that?" Len heard him and responded, "No, he's a hothead, but he wouldn't kill someone." Ansel didn't look so sure. When he didn't say anything, Len went on, "Will you at least look into it? Ask some questions? The cops are already interviewing people. They want to charge Trey, I can tell. I know my boys didn't treat you right. Neither did I. But we're family. We could use your help." Jazzi rolled her eyes. Her family was loving and supporting. She couldn't say the same for most of Ansel's relatives. They were only nice to him when they needed something. Her Norseman had deep values, though, and with a sigh he said, "Jazzi and I will talk to a few people and see where it goes. No promises. That's all I can..."